Clayton and Natalie Morris are the co-hosts of the absolutely outstanding show, Redacted. And I say that not just because I'm in the opening titles in my clash with Jackie Smith and Andrew Neil and the BBC. It is an absolute pleasure to meet you both. Hi from my wife. She's not on screen. Our sponsor made her so beautiful. I'm too possessive and jealous. I can't put her on the screen. But it's wonderful to see you two here. Tell everyone, first of all, about Redacted, when it started. Clayton, when you got fed up getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning for your mainstream media TV gigs.
Yeah, we both worked in the mainstream media for a number of years. I spent about 20 years in broadcast journalism, waking up at like 2 and 3 in the morning as a morning television news anchor in the United States. In the last 10 years at Fox News Channel, and I think it was about 2017 when I decided, all right, that's enough. Enough is enough. It got crazy. It was time to be able to spend more time with our kids, and I realized that being able to step back from that mainstream media lens and be able to put together our own media company, focus on the stories that we wanted to be able to cover the stories that mattered to us. And I think at the end of the day, it was, how could we create a show that we would want to watch every day? Because there are stories that are just never going to be covered in mainstream television.
Yes, but we both worked in the echo chamber of the media, and we both were feeling sort of pulled from one side to the other. And we left our jobs. We took some time to be out of media. We have an investing company, but I think that space really allowed us to see that the polarity of the media is not serving us. And so we started to we read a lot, we researched a lot, and we started to see just how divisive everything is. And if you watch our show, people say we can't tell what side you're on. And that's on purpose. We're not on any side. We're trying to put context to stories that are coming across just to inflame us, just to make us like feel one way or the other and click things and share things. We're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to sort of slow down, read context, read history, and present news in that way. And I think because we both had a lot of space in between our mainstream media jobs and this job that we gave ourselves, it's helped a lot.
And your voice, I mean, thank you for letting us borrow your voice, because in our show Open, and our audience loves it, when George pops up on the screen, we see in our comments, people go crazy for it, because where else, I mean, you just do not get to see those types of stories, that type of coverage, when you have people holding powerful people to account on a regular basis. They get silenced, they get censored, they get blocked, they get banished, they get taken off of YouTube, deplatformed, as we're seeing, of course, with all of these Twitter files, George.
Yeah, we're for the truth, no matter who it's for, no matter who it's against. And I struggle with this all the time. People think because I am viscerally hostile to Joe Biden and the Democrats, that makes me a supporter of Donald Trump and the Republicans. But I'm not, and I never have been. But Donald Trump and the Republicans are not in power. It's Joe Biden and the Democrats that are in power. And it's my job to hold those that are in power to account. And that's what both of our shows try to do. Incidentally, we've also got 3 children. And perhaps unlike yours, or perhaps like yours, mine are actually standing at the door of the studio now trying to get in. So if they break in and disrupt the show, please forgive us. Now, this is a very, very revealing time, as you allude, Clayton. The Twitter files are showing us that everything is as bad as we feared it was, except perhaps it's worse than we feared it was.
And of course,
give us your take.
Well, just at a high level, I think some of the response online has been, wow, this is, it's in their terms of service, right? That's been one of the lines we've seen over the past few days, that, oh, well, Twitter says right in its terms of service that if there are things that they don't like, they won't allow it to proliferate on their platform, which is just an absolute excuse and ridiculous. Because what it shows is that these powerful people in the media have been colluding with powerful people in the deep state. And when I say the deep state, I really mean the permanent government state. When you have a Joe Biden, he's there for 4 years, maybe 8 years, if we're unlucky. But there's a powerful, entrenched There's a powerful entrenched Washington, D.C. that is there permanently. And this backdoor portal behind Twitter and Facebook, the Twitter partnership portal, the Facebook partnership portal, where if you have a government email address, you can log in and you can send them a message and have people censored, deplatformed, and taken down.
Right. I was reading Douglas Murray's column this morning in the New York Post, and his headline is fantastic. It's Twitter's suppression of Hunter Biden's laptop isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy. And now we know exactly how deep that conspiracy went. A lot of this was actioned during the Trump administration. So you could see that even though Trump was in power at the time, the powers that be underneath him were actually working against him to get Joe Biden elected. Why is an interesting question. Well, we just fast forward the clock and now look, we're at war. We have a climate war on poor people. We have all kinds of policy now that is handing enormous amount of power to few amount of people and hurting the powerless the most. The reason is very clear here, but it's something that you see the cancel culture wants to look away. It's the biggest pivot I've ever seen in my life, because this is the culture that loves canceling people, taking a look at this bad behavior, at the lies that Twitter executives were telling us that they weren't doing it, and they were, and they really want to bend over like Gumby in order to not cancel these people, but they love canceling people.
And it's what's amazing to me, George, is that the people that you would think would be really out there supporting free speech and, absolutely staying away from censorship are exactly the ones now who are in support of censorship. I'm really upset because I used to be a tech reporter. When I worked at Fox News, one of my side gigs was I would cover technology, and I had a lot of tech reporter friends. We would go cover, Google events or Apple events. And I always thought that these guys really stood for a free and open internet. And boy, have they disappointed me. I mean, almost universally across the board, these people that I was friends with that would cover these events completely flipped. They are absolutely on the side of calling Elon Musk crazy and saying, I can't believe that this platform is now open. And now we get to hear other side. They only liked hearing the speech that they aligned with. And that's one of the most troubling things to come out of this, I think.
Yes, indeed. The liberals have become the tyrants, and the conservatives, hitherto regarded as tyrants in waiting, have become the champions of free speech. Right and left is completely turned upside down. But going back to Natalie's point, and this is where it, in my view, is a crime and not just a scandal. Of course, Trump was in office, but he was not in power. And being in office and power are two different things. The permanent state was in power, and they wanted Trump out of the office. And therefore, the FBI, the security apparatus of the state, and including, of course, in places like Arizona, the actual government of the state, they were all in a conspiracy with Twitter, not just to get the serving president of the world's most powerful country kicked off a media platform, even though he had 80 or 90 million followers on it, even though it was in a pre-election period.
Yes.
But the government is not allowed to penetrate the media, the free speech space, give orders, have those orders complied with. That becomes a crime against the First Amendment, surely.
Yes. And it's interesting because you would think then that mainstream media would want to distance itself from this. Instead, we see the opposite. We see mainstream media making excuses for it or ignoring it altogether, or somehow trying to make a scapegoat out of Elon Musk. You would think that anyone who cares, who has a journalism degree, who studied free speech might say, no, this is absolutely imperative to a society that we have free speech. This is wrong. How are we going to make sure? And you would also think that here's the story, the headlines that are blaringly absent is someone who's a journalist going to Facebook, going to Instagram, and going to YouTube and saying, how'd you make these decisions? Now Twitter's letting us see. Can we see yours too?
Right.
What happened there?
I said
supremely uninterested.
I said the other day, now instead of the Twitter files, next I hope we see the YouTube files, and then I hope we see the next round of files. And will we ever see it? Of course not. It's sad that we have to wait till a billionaire buys a company before we see it. But
it's like a room full of alcoholics, and one person is doing the AA, and the rest of them are still drinking in front of them.
And you have 17 members of the CIA and the former members of the CIA and the FBI who then become a part of Twitter and are actually behind. Forget trying to infiltrate these newsrooms like we did in the 1970s, right? Now they're actively on the payroll of mainstream media. Vivek Ramaswamy, in his great book called Woke Incorporated, he says that the power center now is not in Washington, it's in Silicon Valley. And I think you're absolutely seeing it in these Twitter files, George.
17 FBI and CIA officials were working at the headquarters of Twitter before Elon Musk. 51 senior officials of the American intelligence and security community put their names and their faces to the now acknowledged fake assertion that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation.
Yes.
Now in tatters. No one is held to account. No explanation is given by the 51 as to why they thought, how they came, all of them, to the conclusion that they did, now that they know that conclusion was false. Ditto the 17, 18 at the Twitter headquarters. They have never explained. In fact, until the last moment, Jim Baker, the former FBI senior counsel and then Twitter senior counsel, was expunging evidence of the material that is now in the Twitter files. Talk about a rearguard action. As he was being huckled out the door, he was wiping computer files and disks. Why is this not a bigger scandal, Natalie?
I really can't put a point on it because, this is the kind of thing, you think of how we freaked out in the media collectively over, the Michael Cohen scandal, the Stormy Daniels scandal, what Trump ate every single day, the fact that he had 5 Diet Cokes for breakfast, all of those things the media loved to drum up like a hornet's nest. And this actual government infiltration, my only explanation is that mainstream media has the same thing happening inside of their newsrooms, inside of their news feeds, and they can't answer for it. It's one of those things where like you can't have Matt Lauer covering Me Too. This is exactly what's happening.
Well, and they're all run by liberals. I mean, these organizations. You mean to tell me that the Washington Post is going to cover this story? You mean to tell me that the same people that butter their bread are going to allow them to actually go and cover these stories? It's not going to happen. That's why we will have to rely on alternative media. That's why, there's 100 million Americans that don't vote in the election. They don't align with either party. They're absolutely disgusted. And we hear from them every night on our show that they've stopped watching the mainstream media. They don't trust it. And they know that they're spinning a narrative run by these billionaires and these oligarchs who are running everything. So they're not going to cover this story. It would be a bigger scandal if they were allowed to cover it.
No, I think that the way that they want to continue to cover it is the eccentricities of Elon Musk. Because that's clickable, it's actionable, people seem to understand it. This is very nuanced, especially, for instance, the bit about the guy saying, I can't really hide these calendar appointments anymore. I'm trying to come up with these creative ways to put meeting with the government in my calendar, meaning he knew it was wrong, meaning he knew everyone else around him knew it was wrong. And he thought it was funny enough to come up with some subterfuge type names. And that's unacceptable. And we all should care. We are free speech absolutists, meaning you have to protect the speech you don't like. And for some reason, one party seems unable to do this. And I can't understand. I did sort of at the time feel like the Hunter Biden story, I bought it. I took the bait thinking, oh, they're just trying to, do something about Joe Biden's kids because the Trump kids are so salacious. That's probably what this is. and Twitter doesn't want me to see it, and I threw it away at the time. We weren't doing a lot of news reporting at the time. And so I know what that feels like, to want to look away from something and then to come back around and see that I was told that for a reason feels like a betrayal.
Yeah. And when you know the mechanism was in place, George, that this mechanism that they would never allow another Trump to happen again, that with the Media Matters crew and the George Soros funding and all of this comes together to raise $100 million to make sure that they could identify the mechanisms of how this alternative media provided Trump specifically with a victory. Then they started targeting those people, going after those people, deplatforming those people, making sure that the network of alternative voices and independent media that brought a Trump to power was actually decapitated. And that's what they've been doing. And so that's why these things, you're up against a massive money machine. And that's why this stuff doesn't see the light of day.
Well, they haven't succeeded as long as we are alive. I've got to say this has been a rare pleasure. Natalie Clayton Morris of Redacted. Tell us how people can watch your show.
Well, we're on YouTube until they take us down. They've taken us down 4 or 5 times now. So we are on youtube.com/redacted news. And then we're also on Rumble at rumble.com/redacted. We do a live show every day at 9 p.m. Lisbon time, Western European time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Thursday. And so,
and we have an accompanying newsletter that goes along with the show as well. It's Monday through Friday. You can get it at redacted.inc. And I want to say the pleasure is ours too, because many of times we get on a road trip and Clayton puts your show on. So you are with us way more than just in our introduction. You've been with us on many road trips in our life, and we always enjoy your take.
And when I have a night off and I'm not doing my show, I'm sitting there with a scotch, sitting by the fire, watching you. So just
I'll tell you what, the next time we meet, it'll be in Lisbon. We'll take in some fado together. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. What a wonderful couple.